Hola, seguidoras, seguidores del grupo Grite, nuevamente un invitado de lujo. El año pasado, por supuesto, todos los que nos gusta el terror, miramos las listas de las mejores películas de terror del año y en prácticamente todas las listas hay una película que siempre aparecía, que era Dead Mail, una verdadera gema, una de las grandes películas del año pasado. Y ahora tenemos la suerte, la gran fortuna de contar con uno de los codirectores de la película, Kyle McConaghy. Muchísimas gracias por este tiempo que nos das.
um, uh, all the people that we do love horror as a genre, when pay a look to the charts and classifications, and the top 10, the top 10, uh, your film Dead Letter was all the list because it's a very fine movie and it's a great movie, a very refreshing one. So it's for us an honor and a pleasure to have you in this interview in order to discuss this the craft of your filmmaking and the whole stuff surrounding the fact of filmmaking.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. Thank you for watching Dead Mail. I was saying earlier, I apologize that I'm another dumb American who could only speak English, but I'm so honored to be here. And I don't know how all of my ums and my likes will get translated, but I'll try to speak succinctly. But I'm very excited to be here and talking with you all.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you very much indeed. So, first
La
question.
primera pregunta es, Kyle codirigió en 2020, en 2020, junto a Joe DeBoer, su primera película, que es Bab. La película, que recomiendo mucho que la vean, es una mezcla muy compleja entre ciencia ficción, hay algo de western, drama, distopía. Es realmente una película muy compleja para ser primera película. La pregunta es, ¿por qué eligieron, junto con Joe DeBoer, un guión tan ambicioso para su primer film?
The question is on the ambition of the first feature. Fernando said in 2020, you and Joe DeBoer released your debut feature, Bob, strikingly ambitious fusion of noir, science fiction, drama, and dystopia. And the question itself is what compelled you to begin your feature career with material of such conceptual and tonal scope?
Oh my goodness, Bab, quite a relic. I honestly haven't watched it in years and years, but thank you for taking a look at it. I think that was obviously as our first film. I think kind of one of our mantras was like, let's show a side of America in the 1950s that really isn't shown. And, most of the American films in the 50s are either the kind of glossy Technicolor type stuff or westerns or something. And I guess, maybe there's some vague elements of some of that in Bad, but we were maybe trying to show the 50s in a gritty setting. And yeah, and it kind of, we were thinking of this town, Minston, this fictionalized town, and yeah, wanting it to feel like it's kind of working in its own ecosystem that's kind of detached from the rest of the world. So yeah, maybe there's remnants of 1950s culture, but they're kind of doing their own thing. So that was the rough premise of the setting. And then I guess working on a low budget, just always trying to find creative, free things we could utilize in a script. And in kind of like 2 hours outside of Los Angeles, California, there's something called the Salton Sea, and it's this man-made lake that used to be like this tourist attraction. It's like in the middle of the desert. And like in the 60s, like the Beach Boys would go there, and it was kind of like a cool, fun place to go. But it's slowly or quickly became polluted by like the irrigation, agriculture, American chemicals that were, in the nearby farms that got into the lake, and all the fish were killed. Anyway, so I went there for my friend Sterling Macer. He had a film that we shot close to it. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. There's like dead fish bones all over the shore. And this, like, we gotta write the film around this place. So, and permits were cheap. So I think Bab is a reflection of just trying to like combine as many free things we can do that we felt were kind of weird and at our disposal, and it kind of just with the help of all the people who made it, turned into whatever imperfect world is in the film.
Um, these all these bunch of things were was at the first moment when you sat down and write the script, or it will have been incorporated as far as well as you were writing the script.
For Babs specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe we kind of had an idea. We wanted to make something, yeah, that felt like it was in the 50s. Joe had a scene of the main character Donnie being trained by this mysterious guy Milt. I think I brought in kind of more of like the sick moms, the unwell mom stuff. And yeah, and I think to your question, I think as we were like kind of writing the premise of the plot of this kind of this young man trying to get revenge on what had the experiments that an evil town ruler had done on his mom. I think we kind of start with the plot, but then it just what I think is fun with filmmaking is just like, all right, well, what elements can we combine? I think I always have a fear of being too normal or boring, so I'm always just trying to think of like, all right, what can we do to make this just a little more off kilter, and what can we give, what weird prop can we give the character, just so hopefully this isn't something someone has seen before. And I know, of course, I'm bringing in all the things I'm influences and things I'm copying into it. So nothing is wholly original, but at least within my unoriginality, trying to incorporate those elements, I
Absolutely.
guess.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And how many days or weeks took the filming of Bob?
How
Oh, Bab.
long it takes? Yes.
Yeah, Bab was an interesting journey. Our producer, Zach Weil, we had the script. We didn't have the money to make it, and he's like, well, hey, how much money can we cobble together and film at least a part of the film? And I was like, I don't know. Well, do you think that's a good idea? It's like, yeah, let's film like a third of let's, put in our money as much as we can, film a third of the film and see what happens. So, we maxed out our credit cards. I sold my Toyota Prius. We borrowed a little money and cobbled together just a little bit of money, not too much, but we filmed about a third of the film, and we cut a trailer with that. Or to answer your question, yeah, we filmed like 10 days, and then or maybe it was like 8 days. We cut a trailer, and then this company in Canada kind of financed the rest of it. And I think we filmed an additional like 15 days. So yeah, probably ended up probably being like 20, 20 to 25 days, I would say.
Hmm. Amazing.
Pablo, ¿podés
And it,
preguntarle, ya te doy, Emiliano, ¿podés preguntarle, Pablo, cómo se distribuyó la película?
Yes, Fernando would like to know how this movie, Bob, was distributed in 2020. How was distributed to the public when there is no platforms, it was still the old-fashioned theaters and these kind of places where you or be HBS, whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it was, interesting time, with COVID and everything. I think it debuted at like the Nightmares Film Festival, like a genre festival here in America. I think it was all remote. It was over Zoom. They did the awards ceremony and stuff over Zoom. I think it kind of complicated release and stuff. Like we didn't really have too much to do with it because that Canadian company kind of had the rights and stuff. So they released it on the VOD platforms. I don't think there was like a necessarily a big push or anything, but it was a great experience making that film for sure. We had a lot of fun. You were asking about shooting days. There were a couple extra days. The main character, Donnie, played by Nick Heyman, an amazing actor, amazing friend. Joe, and I just went to the desert for like 3 days just to film certain random scenes, and it was just the three of us, no other crew and stuff. So it was certainly a rough home on a shoestring kind of budget stuff, but it was a good experience. Learned a lot. A very imperfect film, but I'm glad that you were able to find it and that it's out there somewhere. So thank you so much for watching it.
Yeah. All right.
Emiliano.
Sí, en relación a esta película y bueno, y también a Dead Mail, que también la realizaron en conjunto con Joe DeBoer, mi pregunta es, ¿cómo se llevó a cabo el proceso de escritura del guión y la dirección a dos manos? ¿Cómo fue la dinámica entre ambos realizadores?
Yes, Emmy is referring to on co-authorship and dual direction, in particular to Bob and Death Mail. Could you describe the practical and creative mechanics of writing and directing as a partnership? How were responsibilities negotiated, and where did your sensibilities most fruitfully converge or productively diverge?
Yeah, great question. I think Joe and I have been friends since sixth grade, and have collaborated on many, many, attempting to be artistic ventures. Most of them failed. We started writing together, maybe like a decade ago. And we love writing together. Like I think that's, certainly where the partnership benefits the most, just in terms of like having someone, we do some writing on our own, but we certainly kind of come up with ideas together and want to make sure we're being as collaborative as possible. And it's just always so nice to have instant feedback of like right away someone being like, I don't know about that. Are you sure about that? So I think just kind of getting that instant feedback is so valuable. With directing, I think like all of our films, for better or worse, have been, very low budget. We're kind of like cobbling together the shooting days and time when we can. Joe's in St. Louis, I'm here in Los Angeles, so we kind of have to work independently a little more on the directing side. But then when we're on set, I think what works well with it is I'm usually operating the camera, so like I guess I'm on set with the actors and can kind of give notes to the actors and kind of maybe kind of feel what's happening on set. And Joe's usually behind the monitor, and so he's kind of able to like see what's being filmed with a little more objectivity, and then give notes based off that. So I think it works well that we could kind of both be giving actors notes with kind of different perspectives. And I know that directors, some directors don't like to be behind the monitor, and some of them like to be behind it, so it's kind of nice that we could do both.
Great. Emmy.
Sí, en Bab los personajes suelen aparecer fotografiados bajo angulaciones o planos ligeramente inclinados. ¿Es esto parte, mi pregunta es esto parte de la construcción de estos personajes o es una decisión estética que obviamente, bueno, forma parte de la experimentación, ¿no? Porque se notan en sus otras películas, se notan procedimientos también interesantes como este.
All right. The question of Emmy is on visual angulation of Bob and your other firms. When you study script, there is no professor that say that light and angulation is another characters of the film, because you have to take into account to to make what you wanted to what you want to show. So in Bob, characters are frequently, said Emmy, framed at subtly canted angles. Was this visual strategy conceived as an extension of character psychology, or does it arise primarily for an aesthetic program?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think like during that time, I really liked a lot of the like German expressionist films and like and I don't even know if M uses like Dutch angles like that often, but
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean that was, certainly something that was factoring and something that I've always like liked. I think to some extent, like I do like storyboarding, all the films, but I'm trying to think of like how often I reflect like Dutch angles. A lot of times like rarely is a we don't have much time to really to be too precious with angles. So a lot of times it's like yeah, I will storyboard, but then it's just kind of showing up on set and like what feels good. And maybe yeah, in terms of we wanted things to feel off kilter in Bab, and so I think we relied on those a little more, but I wish there was a more well thought reason to do it. Sometimes it's just kind of a feeling of like this feels right, and I feel like they're had a lot of fun sets with a lot of interesting kind of gritty angles in the film. So maybe that kind of it's been a little while. Like to be honest, I don't know too much of the motivation behind it now that I'm thinking of it. But and I guess like I remember other things that like stood out, like Night of the Hunter, which I think is also kind of very angular, and
Right,
then
right.
the scene in Psycho with I guess when like Norman Bates makes dinner, the sandwiches or whatever, and there's the birds in the background. Like that's something that I'm always like, man, so jealous of that. That is cool how they filmed that. So probably all those influences were playing into the mindset. A different lifetime
Intuition.
ago.
Intuition. It's a great tool.
Oh, thank you.
Intuition, yes.
And tried it, and sometimes, certainly I'm sure we probably overdid it. But yeah, sometimes it is like you're saying, nice to not overthink and just do what feels good in the moment.
All right. Fer,
Concho. Before Bab, antes de Bab, Kyle tiene un short llamado Rubies. Quería saber, no lo hemos podido ver y quería saber si ha tenido algún tipo de distribución o fue un trabajo escolar, está perdido. Básicamente es eso, ¿se puede ver en algún lado?
yes. The question is on the availability of your first short, Rubbies. That is proven to be very elusive, because we try to take a look and watch across the net, but it was impossible. So we would like to know if it is currently accessible to audiences, and did it receive any formal distribution, or was just how to say, science project from the school?
In the school.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, it was very much we didn't really know what we were doing. First kind of maybe first or second kind of narrative short. Boy, I have not thought about rubies too much. It's not out there. I might after this I could go look it up, and if it's not too embarrassing, I'll at least send you all a private link. But I don't. It might be a waste of 12 minutes of your life. So,
All right. Okay.
Emiliano.
Loud and clear.
Sí, en una entrevista reciente junto a Joe DeBoer, Kyle comentaba sobre su primer largometraje, refiriéndose a que tenía muchas ideas, pero que la escritura del guión no la sentían ambos pulida, del todo o trabajada. Mi pregunta es, ¿qué elementos de esa primera experiencia siente que pudo mejorar en su segundo largometraje, Sheep's Clothing?
Okay, the question is on the refinement between Bob's script and sheep's clothing. In our recent discussion, you and John DeBoer reflected that Bob contained a wealth of ideas, though the script may have felt entirely polished. Looking back, which lesson from the first experience most decisively informed the writing and construction of sheep's clothing?
oh, that interesting question. Yeah, sheep's clothing kind of almost wasn't super written. That was kind of a fun experiment. So my friend Aaron Pfeiffer, who's the star of Sheep's Clothing, amazing guy, amazing actor, amazing writer. He kind of had like a vague idea of wanting to play that character, who's suffering from a traumatic brain injury. And so he and I kind of started working on a story for that. And we brought in my other good friend Nick Heyman, who plays the pastor in Sheep's Clothing. And it was yeah, like kind of the beginning of COVID. We're like, we have nothing to do anyway. We want to stay sharp and so we're like, let's just like make a film with the things we have. Like normally, like I don't for whatever reason don't love making like contemporary set films, but we knew we didn't have the budget or resources to do anything. So like let's just use the things we have. We have a camera and just make this film. So it was really like the three of us running around the desert with a fake dead body. And I think to answer the question, like the thing that I learned from that the most is just like how fun it can be when you have time to, yeah, everything was roughly scripted, but we would just kind of like shoot a scene in the desert and just like, never even look at the script and like create new scenarios. And I feel like some of my favorite moments of the film are things that weren't scripted and just, it was just like the two of them, just improvising situations and stuff. And it was always fun to like, they would surprise the other person. Like, there's one specific scene where they like throw a dead body into this like stone pit, and it's like this real thing that was really really there in the desert. It was like it was like a communist community in like the 20s, like built a city in the middle of the desert, but it wasn't sustainable, so they kind of just abandoned it, and it's like this weird stone town. Anyway, so in the film they throw this body in the pit, and then they need to go back in, and like they like dropped a phone or something in it, and they like need the this pastor wants Aaron's character to go in and get the phone or get their keys. It was car keys. And like Aaron told me, he's like, hey, he's like, I'm gonna like run away from him. Like when he like tells me to do it, like I'm gonna run. And I was like, all right, cool, that's great. And then, but we didn't tell Nick that. And then so like Nick is telling him like you got to go get the keys. And then Aaron starts like running, and then Nick just grabs him and is like forcing him into it. And it's all like none of it was planned or whatever. And Nick's reaction wasn't planned. Like we didn't know how he was gonna stop him. Anyway, too long of an answer, but I think like I love writing, and it's great to have like dialogue and material that you feel good about, you feels ready to shoot, but at the same time it's so great when you can be like, oh, we're gonna come up with something, or these actors are gonna come up with something way more naturalistic and better on set. So yeah, Sheep's Clothing I think was just fun to kind of just be open to what can happen.
Great.
Aaron Pfeiffer es great in Sheep's Clothing. El actor es fantástico, realmente está muy, muy bien. De verdad, no me cansaría de alabarlo. Mi pregunta tenía que ver cómo llegó él a la película. Kyle ya contestó esa pregunta, así que básicamente lo que yo te pediría, Pablo, es que le preguntes cómo maneja el casting y la dirección de actores.
Yes. We just already discussed about how Aaron Pfeiffer, a very great performer, appear in your movie. And so instead of asking of that about that, we changed the question, and we would like to know how do you manage the casting staff and the whole thing about the hiring and the gig of the actors.
Oh, it's like what do we consider while casting or? Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I'm so lucky, like living in Los Angeles, like, I could yell out the window right now, and five great actors would hear me yell. Like there's that is one of the many great things about living here. And so, for Sheep's Clothing, for instance, being kind of COVID times, like those were all people we knew. Like never did any casting call, or it was never any like it was just like hey, let's get this friend to play this part, let's ask this friend to play this part. So all of those were friends. But I think and I guess I think that's something too of just like being able to cast people who you already know, who you're friends with, know are just gonna like vibe well with your sensibilities and stuff, and vice versa. Like, such a luxury, and feel very lucky for that. But I think there is something to just working with people who, excuse me, like, view the world a similar way you do. And, just you kind of already get that out of the way of like you're all working toward the same goals, I guess. And maybe other films where we cast, like for Dead Mail, for example, there were a lot of that was also friends that we just cast, but there were a few people, like Tomas Boykin, who plays Jasper. Um, was just he called me after he like sent in his audition, and just talking with him on the phone, and I could tell you, of course, he's a great actor, but like just talking on the phone, it's like I resonate with this guy. I could tell that this guy like really gets this character, and like we just can speak a whatever, I don't know, just have a rapport that feels natural, and that just feels so valuable, and makes it easy to kind of and yeah, obviously the actor doing a 99% of the work, but a collaboration where you could get to where we all want to be for the good of the film.
Emiliano.
Great.
Sí, sí, yo quería preguntarle en relación un poco a la estética que tienen sus películas, visualmente. Me da la sensación de que sus películas se alejan de lo digital, digamos, ¿no? Y se acercan un poco más a lo analógico, evocan lo analógico, etcétera. Mi pregunta es si hay alguna influencia que por lo menos la percibí o me dio esa sensación, si hay alguna influencia del Technicolor de décadas anteriores, o lo hemos discutido también antes, pero de la estética de VHS, pero bueno, si hay alguna influencia de esto en el uso de los matices visuales en estas películas para conservar posiblemente cierto grado de autenticidad o de verosimilitud en estas películas.
We have been discussing um, as a marginalia the thing of chromatic and technicolor influence, but right now the question is about properly of the chromatic thing in your movies. And Amy said that your films exhibit a nuanced sensibility to color. if there any discernible influence from the Technicolor tradition of early decades in your use of visual tonality to preserve authenticity or emotional verisimilitude.
Yeah, love that. I mean, I think, and thank you so much for, it's something that we know is important is color and like certainly and something that we hope to use to help tell the story. And yeah, certainly films like, I think even contemporary films like something like The Master, or there's this film Manos that I feel like is really underseen that came out like 7, 8 years ago that just so you watch it and just like the way they render the colors either in the color grade or the film process I'm always like super envious of and just think that that is so important in helping tell the story. So yeah, I mean certainly you know to take a lot of time in the color grade and we've tried to develop looks that hopefully feel like, are, I don't know, just not just putting a LUT on it, but trying to take some time. But, certainly a lot of it too is just the production design. And we've been very lucky to work with great production designers and wanting to use, pops of color when applicable. Just, I think, well, I think it looks good. And in terms of like, in terms of inspiration, I mean, I think something like, like of course like the birds or Vertigo, love the color rendering in those films. I think I mentioned the Master. Nicholas Winding Refn is always someone who I love the way that he uses um, color, and I think, and I don't know if it, he says that that he's like color blind, so he feels like that's why maybe his colors are more extreme because he doesn't see them as viscerally, so he kind of overcompensates. And um yeah, like I feel sometimes I hope I don't do too much, adding in unnecessary color when it's like not needed or something. But yeah, I think it's at least it's I think it's fun to look at, but maybe, yeah, I don't know if it's always the right choice or whatever. But
Just a little question about it. You use filters or is post-production?
kind of both in terms of like have shot all of our films digitally. So, and I certainly like, especially like early films that I shot visually, I always just hated how like, oh man, I feel like this looks digital. It doesn't. I'm trying to make it look, filmic. So I've started to like as the years go on, put more and more stuff in front of the lens. Like definitely have always using old lenses from the 50s or 60s or 70s, and I have like a soft filter I put in front of the lens always. So that gets part of the way there. But yeah, and then the color grade, sometimes they'll soften the image more, or certainly like add some grain, or have made a couple, whatever LUTs or looks that, try to emulate some of that. And actually, there was one guy, I wish I could think of his name, but he made this like Technicolor LUT. And so I've tried to like, you know, copy some of the stuff he's used in his Technicolor LUT. So, gosh, I can't think of his name, but
Great. Next, guys.
Con respecto a sus películas, pero especialmente Sheep's Clothing and Dead Mail, la mayoría de los personajes en las películas de Kyle McConaghy son muy buenas personas. No se trata de héroes tratando de salvarse Final Girls o héroes tratando de salvar su vida, sino realmente buenas personas que intentan que la vida de los demás sea más fácil. Y no hay ni una gota de cinismo en toda la película. Realmente gente buena que se ve atrapada en situaciones malas. Me gustaría saber, porque esto es muy refrescante, me gustaría saber cómo concibe y construye a esos personajes.
This is the thing we were discussing when you entered in the room
Yes.
about the ethics of goodness of your protagonist. Mainly in Sheep's Clothing and Dead Mail, your central figures are neither archetypal heroes nor cynical anti-heroes, but fundamentally decent individuals motivated by sincere desire to help others. This absence of irony and cynicism is unusual and rather bracing. So, how do you conceive and construct such characters within contemporary genre frameworks?
Oh, thank you. I mean, sincerely, I think like in terms of thinking Aaron Pfeiffer and Sheep's Clothing and Sterling Macer and Tomas Boykin, among others, in Dead Mail that are kind of, the protagonists. Like, I think they just bring so much humanity to the material and are just working from a place of authenticity. And I know, I know Aaron and Sterling very well on a personal level, and they're good guys in real life, but I think are just certainly working to find a true place, and I think I guess in our collaboration, all of us together, I think the characters are maybe coming from a place of not always succeeding in life or feeling like they have their own past and their own guilt and their own things that are maybe making them empathetic characters or empathetic people. So I think, yeah, maybe that's something of just like, you know, I don't know, just people who don't feel great about themselves or have gone through things. So maybe that brings them to, yeah, a more empathetic place. And yeah, I think those actors have done a great job just kind of making, whatever, whether it's something Joe and I write or I write or whatever, like they all those actors just do such a good job bringing humanity. And I know you asked about like protagonists, but even thinking like John Fleck in Dead Mail, I think the way that Joe and I had written that character was like a little more emotionally removed, a little more stoic, almost kind of like a Charlton Heston kind of, I don't know, more classic American man. But John brought a lot of just a lot, that humanity to the character and sensitivity that wasn't necessarily on the page. So yeah, I feel very lucky to work with so many actors who kind of do what you're saying and kind of just bring extra pathos to those characters.
Great, thank you.
Emiliano.
Sí, sí, gracias, Fer. Tomando yo personalmente como punto de partida Dead Mail, la música de Dead Mail va llevando la película realmente y te va manejando la película, el uso de los sintetizadores y demás es como influencia mucho lo que está pasando, lo que estamos viendo. Mi pregunta es si están los guiones de Kyle o las películas, por caso, pensados desde cierta lógica musical, con altos y bajos, con cadencias o momentos de mayor o menor intensidad. ¿Hay una relación intrínseca entre ambos?
The question is about on musical structure in screenwriting. Amy said that in your screenplays, that he would like to know if they are conceived according to a form of, let's say, musical architecture, structured through crescendos, diminuendos, and rhythm modulation of intensity, because in ships, the presence of the soundtrack is really another character that the question is about, do you think this presence of the music as part of a partiture or as a signing of your what you want to say about what is happening on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly love, the incorporation of music into film, and I think it does, like, this is nothing original, but certainly while like writing the films already or like making playlist of music that just feels like something either like we want to kind of copy with the soundtrack or in the case of Dead Mail there was so much diegetic music so kind of was wanting to find some like I don't know, not deeper cut Henry Purcell pieces or otherwise that, knew that we would want. Like the character Josh, for example, is like, he's a synthesizer engineer, but that probably, he's not necessarily like a big music aficionado. So yeah, what are some songs? Thinking of like what kind of music would he like and listen to? I mean, I think in general, and this isn't quite I'm not answering this question well, but I think like listening to like Wendy Carlos's music and A Clockwork Orange and The Shining, there was just something so uh, eye-opening about that first hearing that stuff that just really resonated. And I think that she's just such a pioneer and just, using, a lot of times classical music, but just making it feel her own and using the synthesizers. And that's something, or one thing I would love to do, I don't, this is make a movie about Wendy Carlos because I think she's just so courageous and I can't imagine just what kind of life she's had to live and stuff. So certainly, I think she kind of factors in her audacity with music production, and I think too in terms of like the aesthetics of music is like or even like Dead Mail like I was whatever listening to like a lot of Joy Division and like the way that like you just feel like you could feel the factory room that they were recording in when they were making those two albums and it just there's just something that I don't know just it puts it in a place of where they are like oh I want to be able to capture the I don't just the feeling of Dead Mail the 80s carpet and just that kind of run down 80s aesthetic like if we could kind of capture that in some ways so anyway to not answering your question well is other than yeah music plays an important part just I think it's of course just like I think it's kind of the most magical art form and could kind of give its own inspiration to kind of the worlds that we're wanting to put on film.
Great.
Mi pregunta, Pablo, is about Dead Mail. It's not just a mixing of genres, no es solamente un mix de géneros, sino que es una película que la podés leer como una película de terror o como una película de crímenes. La podés elegir cómo leerla, de lo fantástica que es. Mi pregunta es, ¿qué género Kyle tenía en mente, junto con Joe, para hacer Dead Mail? ¿Una película, a crime film o a horror film for Dead Mail?
Yes, the first question is on the generic identity of the male. Uh, we could say that death male resists simple classification. It may be read as a horrible crime narrative or as a work of horror. When approaching the script, did you privilege one genre as foundational, or was the duality intrinsic from inception?
Yeah, I think we were almost kind of surprised when it was starting to, or, when we were very lucky enough that people were watching it and kind of classifying it as horror. It was like, oh, I didn't really think of it necessarily as horror. And so, yeah, I think like writing it, it was just kind of like Joe, he read about this idea of like the dead letter office and, in some kind of office in the U.S. postal system where they investigate undeliverable mail. And we were, kind of put that on the back burner. It's like, oh yeah, that'd be cool to incorporate something like that. And then I think I, was going through some like relationship strife and thinking about the idea of someone capturing their stilted, lover. Anyway, not and so I think in terms of genre, like for Dead Mail, for example, Joe and I were just kind of bringing in ideas and collaborating on those ideas, and I think we were looking at it as more of kind of a mystery type film. Certainly I think like whether it's Psycho or Marnie or certain or Rope or something in kind of the Hitchcock canon is something that always is a prevailing influence. I think always inspired by like how David Lynch, doesn't quite seem like he's trying to hit a specific genre. He's just telling the stories that are in his head. So yeah, yeah, definitely wasn't seeking out to do something specifically horror or anything. I think really maybe a lot of the films, it's almost like maybe we're like, oh, it'd be cool to like capture this feeling or like capture this kind of rundown Midwest 80s world. Maybe is kind of more of a target than a specific, kind of capturing a vibe than a genre or something. That sounded a little stupid, but translate it much, much better if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's a great answer.
Fine, yeah.
No,
Uh,
Dead Mail se puede leer realmente como una película Hitchcockiana. Es una Hitchcockian film, es una película Hitchcockiana. Eh, ¿Y hay alguna influencia de los hermanos Coen, de Coen Brothers?
uh,
Mm.
Beyond the Hitchcock influence that you can find in your movie, Fernando asks is you can see some kind of influence of the Coen brothers.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I think I remember, or, in like middle school watching Fargo on, cable, my grandma's American cable, like, in 4:3 aspect ratio with commercial breaks, but it was like, what am I watching? Why are they allowed to be talking like this? This is amazing. And, I think just kind of tonal risks that they take certainly have been an influence for sure. Yeah, I mean, I love Blood Simple. I love No Country for Old Men. So I'm sure there are elements of their work that have factored into to Dead Mail to whatever degree.
Great.
Penúltima
Uh,
pregunta, Pablo,
sí,
era sobre cómo se filmó el Dead Mail para que parezca un VHS. Él ya eso
sí,
lo contestó
sí, sí.
usando los soft filters. Entonces mi pregunta sería, ¿cuál fue su intención estética o ideológica en filmarla como si, para que la película se vea como un VHS antiguo?
Mm. Um, it was, we already discussed that that mail is have the texture of a VHS. So, how, ¿cómo era la pregunta, Fernando?
¿Cuál fue su intención? ¿Por qué la filmó como un VHS, básicamente?
Yes. What was your intention? What intending to be or to do to film like a VHS movie? Do you have any, or just for the sake of filming and say, let's do it this way?
Yeah, no, I think like for Bab, for example, like we were maybe trying to create something more specific. Yeah, the idea was like, oh, can we make like something that feels like a Technicolor film, but also like a gritty 16 millimeter Texas Chainsaw Massacre type aesthetic? Like, can we combine those together? And I think then when I like looked back at it with fresh eyes, I was like, ah, it just kind of looks like a digital film that was trying to look a little retro, but I wasn't really happy with how it turned out fully. And so I think with Dead Mail, one thing I was influenced by, like with David Flinch, good God, David Lynch. And I think when before they were making Lost Highway, the cinematographer whose name is escaping me, he like brought David Lynch like different like samples of, photographs and film stills of other films, to try to kind of see like, what do we want this film to look like? And David Lynch, I guess, didn't want to like look at any of it. And he said something like, I want this film to look like this film. And I kind of like took that to heart in many ways, like with Dead Mail, of like, let's just like push it as far as we can in an aesthetic that feels good to us and we want it to look like, but not have something specific in like the, cinema canon that we're trying to make it look like. Like I think I had like all these old family photos from the 80s, and I was like looking at like when I was a kid, like I would watch these like I wasn't Mormon, but there was these church videos that were made by this Mormon company that was just like a very specific aesthetic, 80s, 90s aesthetic that didn't look like normal, film or TV from the era. Kind of had its own thing. So like trying to find things that weren't necessarily film references, still copying other stuff and still being influenced, but trying. So in terms of like the aesthetic of Dead Mail, yeah, I think it was like let's just push it as far as we can and to give it a look that feels right for the film, but it wasn't necessarily like we want this to look like 16 millimeter, I want this to look like Betamax, or it was just kind of like let's just make it look in a way that feels right to the film. Another influence though, which was kind of Danny Boyle made that TV series on the Sex Pistols. I think it was just called Pistol, and I mean that like I think they shot it digitally. It's been really hard I like was researching for a while trying to figure it out. But whatever they did in post it just has like such a authentic look to it that just feels like that late 70s almost like TV documentary look or something. So I was just inspired by like how they went so far and pushed it. And so I think with Dead Mail, that's what we also wanted to do is like let's just take it to an extreme. But yeah, definitely not a specific type of film look we were going for.
Great.
Last question.
Oh,
Is
keep
about
going. This is fun. 10 more.
last question about Dead Mail. Kyle sabrá, supongo que he knows, Dead Mail está en la lista de las mejores películas de terror del año pasado. Yo abrí la charla con esto. Esa película está en la lista desde Variety hasta Rumor Magazine, todos pusieron a Dead Mail as one of the best horror films from last year. ¿Qué sucede en términos creativos y personales? Saber que su película está en la lista de las quizás 10 mejores películas de terror del año pasado. Y si eso no le agrega, si querés le podemos preguntar si eso no le agrega un poco de presión.
Mm. We when we start this interview, we kick off with by saying that Dead Mail appear on numerous charts of best horror films of 2025 as one of the best in magazines such as Variety or Rumor. What significance does such recognition hold for you, both creatively and personally? And if this recognition puts some kind of burden or pressure on your shoulders for the next to come?
I mean, I think always kind of feeling a little like a imposter.
Ah,
I think growing up in the Midwest, not knowing anyone who did anything with film or anything, like I think it's a little surreal just in terms of like never did I even think, or Joe and I think that like we were gonna set out to be filmmakers or something. So I think just have just been doing it through the years and hoping and feeling like failures for most of the time and stuff. So now that we feel so lucky that because of everyone's amazing work, actors and crew and everyone who producers that made Dead Mail happen, like I'm so happy that their work is getting recognized for sure. And like it's just so nice like when I see Peyton Jane's production design or Susan Privers acting or whoever is involved in the film that's getting accolades. Like I feel it feels so good. I'm like, oh my God, yes, so deserved. This should be happening because they did such great work. But I guess thinking of it more on a macro level, like yeah, like it, feel very lucky that people are watching it and that people, astute people who know way more about film than I do, like you all who are watching it, if it, feels humbled by it. Yeah, I guess like maybe I hope to be like a good steward with the opportunity, like I hope that the fact that people whatever will read our next scripts or whatever, like I don't want to blow it, I guess is maybe so yeah, maybe there's some pressure of like been feel very lucky to have made three very low budget films the past few years, and wanna make the next one, whatever budget's at. If it's another low budget one, that's great, but it's so hard to make anything. So feel lucky that anyone would want to be a part of that or something. So I guess yeah, I guess I just want to feel very lucky by these opportunities and hope to be a good steward with them.
no, great, great. And as Fernando said, that was our final question about your work. But usually it's customary over here that the real final question is, what are you up to? If you can share what are you doing or cooking right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of several different things in various states of development. There's, working on a possible Dead Mail prequel. Also kind of there's Aaron Pfeiffer, the Sheep's Clothing actor collaborator. He and I are working on like I don't know. I guess it's like a 90s slasher-esque film that takes place in a church lock-in. Yeah, just a few things that we're working on and trying to find the right fit for. But pretty open and again feel very lucky to be able to make films and not feeling too precious about what the next one is, but hoping there is a next one for sure.
All right. All right, all right, all right, all right. So it was really, really a pleasure. We are very, very thankful for your time, for your generosity, for your open mind, and for the sharing of the craft of your movies, and for the way you uh, are refreshing the horror genre, because this kind of regular people, average Joe, no cynical, no irony, that suddenly suffer a need to be to go deeper in the dark, is really, really nurturing for us. So thank you very much indeed for your time, for once again your generosity, and we really enjoy your movies, and we really enjoy this interview because you don't know you are very humble in the way you answer. That is like we are trying where to go, and sometimes we we get ahead, and sometimes we are so, but we are this is our life, and we are going further to to bring horror or to bring thoughts to the audience. So once again, thank you very much, and really, really appreciate your time and your presence over here.
Thanks,
Oh, well, hey,
Kyle.
thank you all. Yeah, you amazing questions, and yeah, feel so honored to talk with you all. And I think you know, e- education, film studies is so important. And I was like, when I was in I didn't go to film school, but I took like a German film class when I was in college, and that's kind of like what opened my mind to just like, oh my goodness, like watching Fritz Lang films and stuff was like, oh man, this is something I want to try to do. So with the work that you all are doing is amazing, and I'm gonna can't wait to start listening. Is it a podcast or like a interview series or?
This is a yes in an interview series that is uploaded to the YouTube channel of the Grupo Grite. So you will be find Chet Williamson. Help me, guys. Um,
Um,
many directors. For instance,
Yeah.
the director of the color who fell from the sky,
Richard Stanley.
Richard Stanley,
Oh
Richard
yeah,
Stanley.
yeah.
Ma-
and all
Mike
the kind of
Mendes, yeah,
Mike
uh,
Mendes,
Ted Nicolau,
Ted Nicolau.
Nicolò.
Mick,
Yes,
bueno, Mick Garris, yes.
Mick
yes,
Garris. Last week,
yes.
Mick Garris,
Cool.
yes.
And the writers of the size of Ramsey Campbell, that
Yeah. Chet Williamson, yeah.
Ted Williamson, yes. So you are now
In good company.
Oh,
in,
cool.
Yes.
Well,
in very good company and shining for your own shine.
well,
Thank you very much.
no, yeah, so such an honor to talk with you all. Yeah, thank you for everything, and yes, really appreciate you. Thank you, and thanks for going so far back in the canon too. Bab, Rubies. I haven't talked about those films for a long time, so really appreciate you, trudging through those.
No,
All
thanks to
right.
you and thanks
We,
for your
we,
time.
we were digging a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you very much again. Hope to see you soon, and stay well and keep creative this kind of movie that we really do love you.
Uh,
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you all.
Bye.
Appreciate you so much. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye. We'll